Welcome to Dax Machina, with your hosts, Naomi Finn, Steve Wildman Munrotis, and D.A. Roberts. Join us as we explore writing, books, authors, and all things horror. We will delve into the sightings, reports, encounters, and tales of monsters. We will also explore the writings of D.A. Roberts along with others in the horror genre. We will investigate the possibilities that monsters may not be safely locked away in the pages of books. They might just walk among us even now. Grab some popcorn and lock the doors. It's going to be a creepy journey. Welcome to Dax Machina.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on a Saturday edition of Dax Machina. We're going to have a great show for you guys tonight. Joining me tonight is Brian King Sharp from Sasquatch Odyssey, and it is going to be an awesome time because we're going to be digging into his own personal experiences with Sasquatch, his own research, and talking about his podcast as well. Sir, you want to just jump right in and give us a little bit of detail and background and tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll kind of go from there?
Absolutely, man. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate the invite, and I'm glad to be here. So
happy to have you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about my background. You know, I've always been interested in cryptids and things like that. I don't really have that defining moment that sort of sent me down that path, but I've had some experiences in my life that I couldn't explain, still can't explain. So I've always been sort of on the search for figuring out what that is. And it kind of started for me living in a haunted house when I was a kid. It's kind of a dark haunting. So I've told that story a couple of times on other shows, and I've shared it on my show as well. But I had an experience when I was 12, and that sort of sent me on the path that I've been on for quite a while. But I was in law enforcement for 16 years. I guess that was a big part of my life. And while I was in law enforcement, I didn't really pursue the cryptid thing. You know, it's not one of those things you go to work and tell your buddies as you're strapping on your 40 caliber duty weapon to go out that, hey, I saw a UFO and I lived in a haunted house and, I believe in Bigfoot. So that wasn't really part of my world. But once I left that in 2016, it allowed me to sort of open up and sort of pursue that for myself. And I've been on that journey ever since.
Well, I have kind of a similar background. I did almost 20 years in law enforcement myself. And, I know exactly what you mean. That's not a conversation you bring up with people very often about cryptids or Bigfoot or things like that, because if you're active in law enforcement and people find out you're into cryptids, it can affect you on the witness stand. It can affect your job performance. They start thinking this guy's crazy, and nobody wants to work with you.
Yeah, it's definitely the last thing you want to be labeled as a police officer is crazy. And I worked for the City of Atlanta Police Department. It was a large department and several sort of high profile positions when I was there. So it was definitely something I wanted to avoid, but it was always part of my life. It was just sort of on the back burner. And now I get to do it for a lot of hours every week and do 3 podcasts that sort of touch on all of those things. So I'm pretty fortunate.
So what was your experience as a kid? What was the paranormal experience that really kind of touched it off for you?
The first thing for me was, I guess it was living in the haunted house as a kid. You know, my dad had alcohol and drug abuse issues, and it was sort of a dark time when that was going on. And I think it has a lot to do with maybe some of the things that happened in the house, but there was 2 brothers that lived in the house before we moved in, and there was rumors about them being into satanic worship, devil worship, that kind of thing, some dark things that they were into. And I think that sort of culminated with the things that was going on with my dad in the dark part of his life. And there were some weird things that happened. I heard voices in my room at night. I woke up to scratching on the wall and the headboard and things like that. And I spent a lot of time, a lot of evenings and nights, I would get up and I would just be petrified, and I would end up curling up and sleeping on the floor in my mom and dad's room because I was scared shitless because I didn't know what was going on. So.
Well, I think we've all had that one defining moment when it really kind of, I hate to use the phrase because it sounds so hokey, but kind of pushed the veil aside. I hate to use that phrase, but it's really kind of the most accurate. we all have that one moment where we're just like, oh, there's more here than I know about. And I had something similar happen to me. I mean, it's those little weird moments in life that just make you question the bigger picture. You're like, the whole time you're a kid, you're being told by your parents, there's no such thing as monsters. There's no monster under your bed. And then when you start finding out about creatures like Bigfoot and have paranormal encounters, you go, hey, wait a minute. These things might not, monsters might be a little more real than I was told.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things for me is looking back on the experiences I had. And of course, I was 10, 11, 12 years old when we lived in this house, and everybody gets scared at night, right? There's the monsters under the bed and there's the monster in the closet and things like that. But I always felt that there was a little bit more to it. And even I've done other shows, and I was on with one guy, and his thing was sort of demonology. That was sort of his expertise and research that he did. And he talked to me about the experience I had with what I believed to be a Sasquatch when I was like 12 years old. And he asked me the question when I was on the show, do you think it's possible that what you heard and experienced in the woods might have been this dark force or this dark entity that you were dealing with in the house? Because it was sort of this huffing and growling, and I never saw anything. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was being bluff charged. And, when he said that to me, I was like, man, I never really thought about that. I just always assumed that it was something very physical and animalistic because that's what it appeared to be at the time. But looking back, I'm thinking maybe he's right. It might have been something other than a Sasquatch. I don't know. I didn't see it, but it's definitely interesting to explore that and go back and think about some of the things that happened early on and sort of use my adult brain to put myself back where I was when I was 12.
You're not the first person I've talked to that's mentioned that. The guys from Trinity Paracryptid, they actually brought up the conversation one night when I was talking to Tex that he said it's entirely possible that some of what people are seeing in the woods, these glowing red eyes, these hulking shapes that almost seem to have no substance, could be something demonic. And I had never really put that kind of 2 and 2 together. It's completely feasible. You could be near like a burial ground or just in a bad area. Places can be like houses. It doesn't have to be a house. It could be anywhere. It could become corrupted or darkened. And I hadn't really considered the possibility that some of these sightings could be paranormal when we all thought they were cryptid related. I'm not saying that there are every cryptid encounters like that, but it's very possible that some of them could be just unexplainable paranormal.
Yeah, I've always thought that with Dogman. Like I've had a very difficult time wrapping my brain around Dogman. Mm-hmm. And that's, people always say, well, you do a Bigfoot encounter show, so you believe in Bigfoot, but you have a hard time with Dogman. And I think that's the thing about Dogman for me is it's very difficult for me to wrap my brain around how that could physically be possible and physically exist in this plane that we live in on a regular basis. And I've always said that, of course, I don't know, it's all speculation, but I think if there is a Dogman and people are clearly seeing something, the phenomenon exists, I think it's probably something more paranormal than physical. So, and again, like you said, the things that people are seeing, they're having the experiences. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of what it is, and is it something that lives in this dimension? Is it coming in and out? I don't know. That keeps me coming back week after week, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Answers for sure.
Well, with Dogman, I can kind of see both sides of that argument, because when you look at Dogman encounters, when people report their encounters, almost to a man, they describe it as being demonic or hellish. That they felt they were being hunted. They felt they were being stalked. You don't hear about the peaceful encounter with Dogman, like somebody walking through the woods and Bigfoot sees them and heads on their way. You don't hear that with Dogman. It's either this thing was hunting me or I had the feeling I had to run for my life. And again, they keep tossing around words like hellish or demonic. But by the same token, Dogman sightings go back for so many centuries. The condition known as cynocephaly, which is basically an anthropomorphic humanoid with the head of a dog. Christopher Columbus and Marco Polo both reported seeing cynocephala, creatures on on islands that had the heads of dogs. They're in fact one of the saints. I believe it's Saint Michael. Is it Saint Michael or Saint Christopher? That's known.
I think it was Saint Christopher.
Yeah, Saint Christopher is known as the dog-headed saint. In fact, how a good chunk of the Catholic iconography of him shows him in the full Catholic raiment, but with the head of a dog. So I think that they are very physical creatures, but I think a good many of them are just pure evil.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And I've only done one Dogman show that I had one lady on. It's been months and months and months ago, but she had basically 5 encounters over the course of her life from childhood up through adulthood. And I mean, she's a paramedic out in Texas and appears to be very sane to me. And whatever she had experiences with seemed very physical. I mean, to the point of, I remember one story she told, this thing was chasing deer across the road and it actually hit the back end of her truck and damaged the truck. So it was a very physical thing that happened, but I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of them. I just can't wrap my brain around how they exist all the time and survive and are only seen so many times. Cause I'm not really into Dogman, so I don't know how often those things get reported, but like versus Sasquatch, for example, but they've got to be fewer and far between, I would think. So yeah, I don't know. I'm open to anything.
It's always possible. I'm Josh, by the way, a friend of DA. I'm kind of like a third or fourth on the bench, fill in. It's also possible that maybe some Bigfoot sightings and or Dogman sightings might be misidentified one way or the other if it's not completely clear, and that makes it hard to get good numbers on which one is which. Now, some of them, obviously, when you see them standing there or tree peeking, you have a good idea it's Bigfoot. But if it's a large creature pacing you in the woods and it's bipedal and all this stuff, do we know which one it might be?
Yeah, if you never get a clear visual of it, it's hard to say which one it could be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I've talked to have made the comment about, I think all the Dogman sightings that people are having are just misidentifications of seeing a Sasquatch. I don't think that's the case at all, because some of the descriptions I've seen and heard are very dog-like, right? There's no mistaking what people are seeing. So that always takes me back to the question, is this thing a physical thing? Is it something that, so it's interesting, man. I'm always open to everybody's ideas, and I never close my mind to what anybody thinks. So
that's something I've always said as well, is no matter the encounter, no matter what kind of story, whether they talk about it, some people claim that that Bigfoot is connected to UFOs, and others talk about mind speak or infrasound. There are no experts in this field, and we don't know for sure. So every account has to be taken as at face value for what they experienced, because until we know exactly what these creatures are, we can't say for sure what they aren't.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I talked to Les Stroud about when I had Les on from Survivor Man. Les had an experience where he felt like, a couple of experiences actually, where he had incidences that would be considered mind speak. He's very careful. He thinks it's telepathy. Yeah, he'll correct about the mind speak, because that's sort of the woo-woo and Bigfoot. Les was very quick to say, I think it was they were telepathically communicating with me. And I was like, okay, well, I have a lot of respect for Les, and I don't think anything he told me was untrue. And I believe his experiences are his experiences. So again, if it's a flesh and blood, the big dumb ape in the woods, then how are they using this ability to telepathically communicate with a human, right?
Exactly.
I've always had a theory on that, and I can only speak to this as a theory, as I've never encountered it myself, just taking in, the different reports of the woo, mind speak, telepathy. It always comes across in the reports as almost like feelings, like get out, run away. It's very very short. And but then you start talking about infrasound and stuff like that. It like taps into that primal part of your brain when you get hit with this stuff I almost wonder if it's more of a physical reaction to something like infrasound, where you're getting hit with this, and it's more your primal part of your unconscious brain telling you, get out, run away. You don't want to be here. And obviously, we can't prove one way or the other without deep scientific or paranormal study, one way or the other, depending on what it is. But that was always my take on it.
Sal Passos had a question earlier. He says, doesn't the Dogman report say that they have red evil eyes? Most Dogman reports that I've taken or spoken to or read, they describe the eyes as being either like a yellow, like a jaundiced yellow, or a golden. Very rarely do I hear one that's actually described as red.
I've heard more Bigfoot stories with red eyes than Dogman. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, and when you start dealing with tapetum lucidum, and I can tell you this from deer hunting, the direction it's facing can sometimes affect eye color. Like if a deer is looking right at you, they tend to usually look green, but if it's just off kilter, it can look white, or just about any other color. I mean, I think it has a huge amount to do with the direction the light is hitting the eyes,
even the type of light.
Yeah, if you're another good point. If you're getting an angled reflection, you might get an odd color.
I've even seen cats go from green to gold to even a type of orangish red, depending on the direction and the type of light.
Well, I know from growing up on the farm, we used to go back in the back field because we burned all our trash. It wasn't a trash service that came out to the sticks when I was little. Anything that was burnable got burnt. So usually one of me or my brothers had to go out in the evening and burn the trash. Well, if you piddled around and didn't get it done early enough, you were out there in the dark doing it because it had to get done. And I remember many a time be standing out there by that burn barrel, and I'd hear something. I'd light up the flashlight and shine it out across the field, and there'd be all kinds of eyes out there. And I tell you, nothing makes you want to hurry up and get back in the house faster than seeing a bunch of eyes. John Doe says, if you've heard of experimental sonic weapons, infrasound is very comparable. It's far less lethal and obvious natural. Yeah, I've heard that the military has been using both directed microwave energy and amplified sound weapons, using them on crowds or to break up enemy positions. But yeah, both of those are very, very legit deals, and we know infrasound exists. There's so many examples in the animal kingdom. Elephants are capable. Tigers, a lot of big cats are capable of some type of infrasound. So it's not outside the realm of possibility to think that Bigfoot or other creatures, other cryptids like that, could possess some type of rudimentary infrasound, which definitely affects people in odd ways. I know I was at the St. Louis Zoo one time and got growled at by one of the tigers, and I felt it. I mean, it was like, hey, that just feels weird. Like every nerve ending in your body's like, you don't really want to be here right now.
Yeah, and I've talked to so many people that have claimed to experience or felt like they experienced some sort of infrasound, and there's always that feeling of dread, and there's always that not always, but a lot of them have physical symptoms, like you said, and they feel nauseous and lightheaded, and so there's got to be something going on. It's either the adrenaline from the fear of the situation that they're in, or it's actually something physical that's happening, like infrasound. Again, it's very interesting to me, man. I love it.
John Abraham says, do you think cryptids will ever be taken seriously by science? You want to take a crack at that one?
Absolutely, I do. I've had people on the show. Dr. Jeff Meldrum comes to example. Dr. Meldrum was on the show, and we talked about that. And I think there is a huge group of scientists that are interested in cryptids. I think a lot of them are working behind the scenes at this point, and I hope that eventually they'll get to the point where they can sort of come out of the cryptid closet and start to take these things seriously academically. Because Dr. Meldrum, for example, had a lot of problems early on, particularly when he started looking into Bigfoot with his career. I mean, his tenure was threatened at one point by one of his superiors who was like, you don't need to be dealing with this and going down this path. And thank goodness that he stuck with it, because one of the things he mentioned on the show when we talked about it was he sees now this younger group of people, because he's not aging backwards, folks. He's getting a lot older, and he's having a harder time getting out in the field, admittedly so. I'm not putting that on him. That was his words. So, but he's very encouraged by this younger group of people that he's seen coming through his classes and some of the talks that he does around the country that are very interested in the subject. And I think it may be that sort of millennial generation that sort of puts this on the scientific map, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I hope I'm not, but I certainly hope that they start to take it more seriously. And as we all age, I think it becomes more of a topic that we can discuss. Look, I have a Bigfoot podcast where look what we're talking about on your show now.
Exactly.
Right? I have a paranormal podcast that we talk about alien abductions and things that if you had mentioned this 10, 15 years ago, you'd be laughed out of the building or it just wouldn't be discussed. And now we're able to openly discuss it and people show up and listen to it. And I think there are academics that are in the audience.
I would agree with that. Well, we're starting to see more and more like details coming from the government. Like, for example, the declassified UFO files. It's like out of the blue, the government's like, oh, yeah, they're real. Just kind of mention it as a footnote. But we're also seeing, little things coming forward about cryptids. Like the Ohio Department of Natural Resources did a whole series on Bigfoot. And when I first saw the videos that came out, I thought, well, this is going to be tongue in cheek. It's just going to be treated as a joke. And it wasn't. They were very serious and very straightforward about, dealing with Sasquatch in the Ohio grassman and things like that. We're also hearing that, certain military training manuals have had them in them for years, like up in the Fort Lewis and Fort Lewis, Washington area. So little by little, I think the government is letting little bits of details out. And I don't think they're ever going to just go, here's the big information dump. I think they're just going to slowly normalize it until the point they go, well, there it is, folks.
Mm-hmm.
I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to get a lot more information that we never would have thought possible. I mean, heck, when I was a kid, anybody that said they believed in UFOs was thought, to be the old tinfoil hat, absolute crazy. But now we've got the Navy releasing cockpit footage of the fighter jets chasing them. I'm like,
But see, go ahead.
Well, I was going to put my interviewer hat on and ask you, Josh and DA, a question about disclosure and government cover-ups. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
If we can. What do you guys think? Because I have an opinion. I've expressed it on my show before. I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart. I love a good conspiracy theory. And at the same time, I was a government employee. DA, you were a government employee for many years. I saw it I worked for a huge metropolitan police department, and it was scary, the things that we didn't know. And when you magnify that out and you're talking about the government the size of the United States government, sure, I think there's some knowledge there about a little bit of all of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But my opinion is I'm not sure that I'm buying into this massive government cover-up and they know everything about UFOs and Dogman, and they've got a Bigfoot in the backyard studying it, those kind of things. I'm just not there with the conspiracy theory. I think there's a little bit of that going on, but what do you guys, what's your opinion on that? What do they know and what are they not telling us?
Josh, you go ahead. Well, then I'll grab my tinfoil hat and go crazy.
I tend to lean a little bit more in that direction myself. I think they're aware, which is why they're slow dripping the information. But I think the reason we're not getting a big information dump is because they only know a fraction more than we do. Mm-hmm. And so it's one, to protect their own ignorance on the subject. And that's also why it's not headlining news. It's 12th page, back of the third section type news. If they just leak it out a little bit at a time, they can stay slightly ahead of it. But also offer some disclosure because, there's so many people on the planet with so many recording devices, both in the sky, on the ground. We're going to come across this information ourselves. So the government has to try to stay ahead of it to kind of have that sense of control or we know what's going on. Don't worry about it, guys. It's fine. And so I think they do know more than us, but I don't think they know the whole picture.
I have a down the rabbit hole theory, and you can agree or disagree at your leisure. One of the earliest recorded written history of historical accounts we have of Bigfoot was Teddy Roosevelt's account in The Wilderness Hunter, the Bauman incident. But when you study the level of detail in the Bauman incident, I'm a hillbilly, and my family's all hillbillies from the rural Ozarks. You don't get that level of detail out of somebody without really prying. I think since that book was written before Roosevelt was president, I think he was Bauman. And I think he had a Bigfoot encounter he couldn't explain. And therefore he knew this creature was real. But at the same time, he had political aspirations and he didn't want to be labeled as a nut job. So he didn't come forward. Flash forward to once he's in office, what's one of the first things he did? He created the National Park Service and cordoned off millions of acres of land that we're not allowed to hunt, fish, and whatever, where they control, the government controls who has access to some of these deeper areas like Glacier and Denali, Yosemite. There are some areas that people just aren't allowed to go because they say you don't. They want to protect endangered species, and they've got 1,001 reasons. But Teddy Roosevelt founded the national park system and put those things in place. Now, when we start talking about that, and then we look at the David Paulides missing 411 cases, how so many people, so many hikers go missing under such weird circumstances in and around national parks. At that point, you're like, I'm not sure this is tinfoil hat anymore. There's a pattern here. So I firmly believe the government has known about them for a long time. I can't attest to how much they know, but I think they've been aware of the creatures and the potential for them to be dangerous for a very long time.
I would tend to agree with that. And I'm fascinated with the missing 411 stuff. I certainly am not one of those people that think every one of the disappearances in the national parks is a Bigfoot taking folks.
Oh, absolutely.
The case may be. But I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't open our brains up and say it's a possibility that at least some of those have got to be cryptid related, right. Bigfoot or whatever the case may be.
Well, Paulides only brings the really weird ones to light. There are thousands of people that have gone missing in national parks, but the ones he profiles on the missing 411 are the ones that follow specific criteria. They disappeared under weird circumstances. Tracking dogs won't track them. If they find anything at all of the person, it's found way farther away than they ever could have been found, like that toddler that was found like 8 miles away and his clothes were clean. How could a toddler wander through the woods and swamps of this area for miles and miles and miles and be found with clean socks?
I wanted to circle back just a little bit to your comment about Roosevelt. It's still possible that the current government doesn't know that much just because Roosevelt saw something and decided to make, we'll call them national preserves instead of parks. It doesn't mean that future generations of the government still didn't think that he was banana pants. You know what I mean? Like they might be, again, aware, but being aware and believing, Roosevelt saw these things are, two separate things. I would love to think that there's a codename Wild Hunt out there somewhere doing this stuff, but I love America. I served our country. I don't think we're that smart. I don't think our government is that smart. We served in the military. We do some pretty crazy stuff, but I don't know if we could keep something like that under wraps for too long.
They've kept bigger.
Yeah.
It's all about compartmentalizing information.
I'm a conspiracy theorist too, but I think a lot of conspiracy theories are thrown out there to make our government sound more intelligent than they really are. I think they're cover-ups for the lack of a cover-up. If that makes sense at all. Like, we want to sound better than we really are, so we're going to throw a bunch of crap out there. We did all these things, but nothing ever really happened. I don't know. That's always been my take.
I think some of it is probably disinformation too, right? Like you said, they put out enough information for it to be disinformation to, hey, look over here and don't look over here, right? It's similar to some of the stories about the Roswell UFO incident. There's a lot of conspiracy theories, and that's been talked about forever. And there are some people that will say, "Oh, that was a weather balloon," or that was Project Mogul, and everybody else says no, it's UFOs. And so it's one of those rabbit holes. It's the best way for the government, if they want to confuse people, to do it, right? It's just disinformation. We dabble a little bit of this out there, and they'll talk about that for a decade.
Yeah. And with you, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to finalize my statement. That was more for cryptids and stuff of that nature. I think UFOs, they're full in the know on that. Just with Roswell alone, the very first guy that saw something was like, oh, yep, that was straight up a UFO. And then someone had to come down and be like, you need to shut up.
Army intelligence is like, no, it's not a UFO. No. Look at this. Look at this is a weather balloon. Look at this. That's typical military, right?
Nothing up my sleeves.
Yeah. We're the government. Why would we lie to you?
Yeah.
I think when we're, especially when we start talking about the missing 411 cases, David Paulides is a former cop. He found well, it was actually presented to him by somebody that worked for the Park Service. And I've known people that work for the Park Service, and they get real quiet when you bring the subject up. They don't go, no, that doesn't exist. They just go, that's really something I can't really talk about, which to me says they know more than they're allowed to talk about. But there's a lot of cases that are coming forward, like U.S. Border Patrol, people that work in search and rescue, like the Canadian Mounties had their own encounter stories. I mean, these are not people that are prone to just going, yeah, I was out in the mountains and saw a Bigfoot. These are people that know putting that in a report could be career suicide.
Yeah, I've reached out to David Paulides and asked him to come on my show and talk about the missing 411 stuff. And I heard him talk up in, I think it was a Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference last year. And it was interesting when I reached out to him and asked him to come on the show. His response was he didn't want to come on a Bigfoot show. And I just paused for a second and I'm like, well, that's interesting, because I just saw him give a speech and sell books at a Bigfoot conference. But I get it, because it's very similar to what we were talking about in the very beginning, DA, about law enforcement. And he walks this fine line because he's talking about real people that have gone missing, and he's got this responsibility to their families and their stories. And he walks this very thin line between, okay, these Bigfoot folks are really into this, but I've got to be very careful here, because I'm not saying, or I can't say that is what it is. So I commend him for the work that he's done to bring light to these cases and be able to walk that line for so long, because it is tough. And he does make his way around the Bigfoot circuit, but he has to be very careful about saying, oh yeah, a cryptid probably killed these people, even though everybody who comes to the Bigfoot conferences to hear him speak, we're all thinking it, right?
Yeah. I get your point. He's got to walk that line, and that's, to me, that's one of the best things about the missing 411 is because he never says this is what I think did it. He just presents the information to let you draw your own conclusions. Granted, sometimes they might be the wrong conclusion, but he doesn't spoon feed you the conclusion. He just brings the information, and in a lot of cases puts out all the commonalities, like it was near a boulder field, it was near water, the person
weird weather event.
One of those, a lot of times it's somebody with a disability of some sort. It's just those weird commonalities, and when you look at it, if it was a large predator, any large predator goes after the weakest one in the herd, and that's not trying to sound bad. That's just the way predators hunt. If you watch a pack of wolves, they go after the slowest buffalo. They'll go after a deer that's already injured. They single out the ones that are the easiest to catch, because it's all about expenditure of energy versus reward. When you're a predator, you got to expend the minimal amount of energy to keep yourself fed, and that's why a lot of big predators won't risk getting hurt, because getting hurt out in the woods when there's you can't just pop into the urgent care and get yourself patched up. It's a lot of times getting injured out in the deep woods is a death sentence. Or if the next big predator comes along, is like, hey, this guy's hurt.
And what's interesting too is with those commonalities that he lists, and again, this is something that he doesn't say either, but it's heavily implied that while it's a predator, it seems to be some sort of predator. There's a level of intelligence to it too. He brings up, clothes were folded in a really weird way, or they were miles away from where they should have been, almost like they were either brought or led there. So normal predators wouldn't do some of these things that he brings up. So like you said, he kind of has to walk that line. And I think John Doe said it best. He's got to keep the project credible in the eyes of the general public. And unfortunately, not enough people either believe or are publicly willing to believe in this. And it could just damage his own reputation, the families involved. And I think it's good that he walks that line.
Yeah, I agree. It obviously pissed me off because I wanted him to come on my show, but I certainly got it, right? As a show host, I want him on because
at least you got a response. I sent him a request and he just never got back to me.
Yeah, I did get a response, and it was, a polite no. I don't want to be on a Bigfoot show talking about Bigfoot. And I'm like, okay, I got you. We can just talk about the books, but hey, I totally get it because I understand it. Like I said, we were both in law enforcement. Josh, you served in the military. You have that responsibility, even though he's not active duty, you still have that responsibility when you're talking about cases and real lives. And that's one of the things that people, I think, lose sight of. And I even do at times doing shows like I do. I have real people on, and their lives are sometimes very negatively impacted by their sightings and some of the things that happen to them. So the stories are entertaining and the shows are entertaining, of course, but at the end of the day, you're still talking about people. And in the cases of these missing 411 cases, we're talking about people who have lost their lives. So
I've got a friend, and I promised him I wouldn't reveal his name, but he got out of, he stopped, he was a lifelong deer hunter, and he stopped deer hunting and got out of law enforcement because of his sighting, because he didn't want to take a call where he might run into one. Because he worked in a small county and most of his calls were rural. And he got out of law enforcement over it. He was sitting in a deer stand early one morning and he dozed off and he felt something tugging at his lunchbox. And when he opened his eyes, it was literally standing right there pulling on his lunchbox. I said, well, what'd you do? He goes, well, I gave him my damn lunchbox. And he has not, to my knowledge, been back in the woods since.
And that's one of those things that goes to credibility, right? I get emails and messages a lot of the times when I have somebody on the show and they say, do you really believe that story happened? And yeah, when you have the conversations, what you hear on an hour show like this one, for example, is one thing, but the conversations that you hear behind the scenes before the people come on the show is often some of the most telling things, And sometimes I've had people on the show. Glenn comes to mind. I did a couple of shows with Glenn. I did one on Paranormal Odyssey talking about his UFO and alien abduction experiences. And he had a Sasquatch encounter. And you can physically hear it in his voice when he's telling his story, how shaky he gets. It still breaks him up even years later. And I think that's one of those things, like when an avid hunter, and that's a common thing. Actually, a lot of stories get told about that. Avid hunters just don't step foot back in the woods after they have an encounter with these things. And it's hard to discount those kind of stories for sure.
I had an encounter story that was given to me by a friend's father. It happened up on the Gasconade River here in Missouri. And I absolutely, completely believed him, because when he started to sit down and tell me his story, he got the shakes so bad he couldn't talk. I had to get a couple of shots of whiskey in him to calm him down enough to tell me the story, because he was physically shaken when he was talking about it. And he said, Doug, I'll tell you straight out, if that thing wanted me dead, I'd have been dead. There's no way I could have got away from it. He basically stepped around the corner. He was out squirrel hunting and had a 22 long rifle with him, and he rounded a corner and he said he damn near ran into its chest. And it was just there. And he was so shook up, he didn't want to go back.
Yeah, I've always said if I ever saw one of those things, I would want it to be from 100 yards away and me in a car and it crossing
from a moving vehicle.
Yeah,
maybe an aircraft passing over.
Yeah, definitely don't want to run up on it. And no, I'm good.
I agree.
See, I'm just the opposite. When I was on the riot team, I always wanted to be the first guy through the door. I want to be that guy that runs into one. I'm wired a little wrong, I think.
Well,
It's always, my mother used to tell me when I was a small child that I would blunder in where angels feared to tread. And that's kind of been the story of my life.
That's pretty good. I got to write that down.
yeah, I've loved learning about these things as I grew up, and I've been real deep into paranormal, and I've had some experiences. And as much as I enjoy cryptid, again, it's one of those things. I agree with you. I want to see it from a distance or some really high quality video from someone I trust. I don't think I want to have the 12-foot tree peeker encounter. Pretty sure I'd have to have a clean out after that.
Well, you know how I reacted when you pulled those images out of that film we shot at Joe Bald. We were shooting a promo video for a book of mine. And me and my friend Steve and my wife and his wife were in my van. And Steve and I got out of it's an old abandoned campground here in Missouri. And we were just shooting a promo because I had one of the books I was writing was set in that area. And it wasn't until a year later when somebody spotted something move in the background behind us. And I was the first time they pointed out, I'm like, nah, I don't see it. And now that I know exactly what I'm looking for, I can't help but see it. And when Josh and Adam were able to isolate images out of that video, it scared the crap out of me because we were like 30 yards away and never saw it.
I didn't believe it either until I saw movement on the video, because I thought this has got to be pareidolia. It's got to be some sort of branch or something that we're just seeing some weird way. And then I zoomed in on the video and I scrubbed it frame by frame back and forth, and you can actually see it move behind the tree. And I'm like, well, I need a break from this. I've looked at this video enough. I'll come back.
It reacted to my flashlight. It just dumped back behind the tree. And I never saw it. I mean, for like a year, it was up on YouTube, and none of us saw it. And to me, it was just a promo video for a book. And until we were talking about it one night and played it on the air for that area because it's a creepy area. And someone's like, "Hey, something just moved back there," and the rest is really kind of weird. But I'll show you one of the images. And granted, this was shot on a cell phone. We had no plans of going down there shooting any kind of cryptid video. We were shooting a book promo video for one of my books. You can kind of see it there. And it's a little better with this one. You can actually see it's like a dog-shaped head. I showed these images to MK Davis and they sent the video, and he goes, "Yeah, something's moving back there." He said it's not good enough to tell exactly what it is because it's a cell phone video. But even MK Davis was like, "Yeah, you got something moving behind that tree." And we went back to the spot, and it was about 9 feet off the ground where it was moving.
This was still my personal favorite.
The one where you can see the hand.
Mm-hmm. Again, even seeing this one, I was still like, nah, my brain was like, I'm not allowing myself to see that. And then, like I said, it's then when I started seeing the actual movement, I was like, yeah,
it's not clear enough to say definitively one way or the other what it is. But when we were able to isolate the video, you can definitely see something moving behind us. And, me personally, when I look at the one image, the head looks dog-like to me. So I in my heart of hearts, I think we captured a Dogman on film. But it's not clear enough. It's not definitive enough to say one way or the other. And I'm not going to present it as the smoking gun proof of all cryptids. I just say we captured something weird on video and we can't explain it.
Well, if I could, let me ask you guys this. This comes up on my show all the time. We talk about evidence. And some of the evidence that we've had for years, the Patterson-Gimlin film, for example. Mm-hmm. I've had several shows just centered around some of the controversy recently with the Patterson-Gimlin film. And we're still debating it after all of these years.
Sure.
And I recently had Todd Standing on. Todd Standing is one of those guys in the Bigfoot world that it's this polarizing figure. Everybody, you're either one or the other. You love the guy or you hate the guy. And I said it forever on my show. I called him out as a hoaxer multiple times on my show. And I reached out to him to get him on the show to sort of defend himself and change my mind. I wanted him to change my mind because I see the things that he's captured, these videos and these images. And I've said it many times. He's either captured the most compelling evidence ever that I've ever seen. I'll just speak for me, that I have ever seen that Sasquatch is real, or he's the greatest hoaxer of all time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I had him on the show. I talked about him with Les Stroud, and Les has spent time with him, and Les behind the scenes sort of started me down the path of sort of changing my mind about Todd. And then I had the guy on the show, and I loved him, man. I mean, he's just a really cool dude. And he's hard not to like, in my opinion. And then I started looking at his evidence and talking to him about his evidence. And even some of the things that he said to me during the interview, I went back and played it out, and I was like, wait a minute, what did he just say? Mm-hmm. It was something like, you know, if I did fake the evidence, was it to propel everything forward to species recognition and all these things? And I was like, what?
A weird statement to make.
Yeah, it's a weird statement, right? And I've talked to him since then. I'm going to jump on a call with him probably next week and talk about working on another project together. But at the end of the day, I guess my question for you guys is, what's the deal with the evidence? What do you think it's going to take for any of us to look at, whether it's Dogman or Bigfoot? What is the evidence outside of a body? Do you think there's anything that's going to convince the majority of the people, or even you, DA, or you, Josh, that these things are 100% real?
Well, even speaking for the photographic and video evidence we collected, the unfortunate truth is, because of Photoshop and Video Shop, it is so easy to fake these videos. I know the video is real and hasn't been altered. Because you can ask Josh. I am utterly incapable of doing that. I suck at technology. I can film it on my cell phone, but beyond that, I'm like, yeah, I got to send this to Josh to tell me what the hell. I'm terrible at technology. So I know for a fact our video hasn't been doctored, but video and picture, you know, still pictures and video are never going to be definitive proof, because it's so easy to hoax them, and unfortunately there's so many people who have done it. So I think really even Dr. Melba Ketchum's DNA study is probably not going to be able to be presented as the smoking gun because of so much backlash it received. I mean, her career was effectively ruined over that DNA study, even though it was corroborated by independent labs. You know, if she wasn't hitting too close to home, there wouldn't have been such a big smear campaign against her. Is all I can say. But I think, unfortunately, and I am the last guy that advocates go out hunting one of these things. I go armed when I go out in the woods and look around, or go film videos and, you know, take accounts. I go armed, but it's not so I can kill one. It's so I can defend myself, because there are the things out in the woods that'll take you out besides Bigfoot or Dogman. You know, you could run into a mountain lion or a bear or even a snake. So I carry to protect myself, not, you know, because I want to go home. I don't want to become the next missing 411 case. But it's going to take a body, but whether it's alive or not. I mean, the state of Oklahoma put up a $3 million bounty on a live Sasquatch. Thus far, nobody's cashed in on that. When you're dealing with a 8 to 10 foot primate, how do you know how much knockout drops it's going to take in a dart to put it down? I mean, you know, if you use basically a mountain gorilla as a baseline, you might just piss it off.
And that's assuming it has the same physiology as a gorilla, right, or a human, or like, how does it react the same way? Are we even certain that it's physical? What if it has paranormal aspects that we're not aware of? There's so many unanswered questions that you're right, we don't know. As far as myself, it's hard to say, because you have to speak to an individual basis and a world basis. Like, individually, I believe it's real because of this video. You know, that was enough for me, because it was basically firsthand. I mean, secondhand, because it came from DA, but knowing what he's capable of and not capable of, and what we were able to grab out of it. Now, full disclosure, we're working on a video game. We are more than capable. We're graphic art designers. We are capable of doing it. I have made fakes to prove the fact that there are fakes on different sites. Someone's like, oh, this has to be real. In 5 minutes, I grabbed just a picture of a werewolf guy off the internet and made the same photo. But with DA's video, a couple light filters, were applied was all that we did. So I have to be honest that we are capable. Me and Adam are fully capable of doing it. But that's between me and DA. I wouldn't do that to my friend. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have him put something out on the internet. I mean, I love him like my brother. So, but
and I have never ever claimed this was the be all end all,
and we still don't either.
Piece of evidence, because we don't know for sure what it is, but we do know we got something weird moving, and it was big.
But as far as worldwide, I think DA is right. It's going to be a body, but even then, there was an incident happened here in Lima, Ohio, where there was it was a UFO type incident over a high school. Marching band, the entire marching band saw it. Some other, people saw it. They all saw it and they all believe it, but no one else saw it. So no one else believes them. So like you could even have isolated populations that believe it because they all saw it. But what is it going to take for everyone in the world to be like, okay, I guess this is a thing now?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's ultimately going to take a body, and I'm kind of like you, DA. If it were between me and one of them, I'm going to try to come home and survive the shift, so to speak. But
yeah,
I think the interesting part to me is that these things have been cited for, like you said, so far back in history, and here we are at 2021, and I have a hard time at times wrapping my brain around why there hasn't been definitive proof at this point. You mentioned Dr. Ketchum's study, and I've reached out to Dr. Ketchum and invited her on the show. She's got a standing invitation that she said she may take one of these days. She's not ready to talk about some of the new things that she has going on. And I hope that she eventually does that, because, I go back and forth on that. And there's a lot of people that point fingers in one way or the other about her study. But again, I don't think DNA is going to get it done. I think it's going to have to be a body. And I'm hoping eventually one day that we may find one that's died naturally, or somebody takes one down and we answer the question for everybody. Because, 5 days out of 7, I'm like, yep, these things are real. And then there's those couple of days a week after I've had some tough interviews, I'm like, I don't think we're ever going to answer this question.
Well, the problem is there is so much hoaxed material out there. And every time somebody posts a hoaxed video, all it does is destroys the credibility of people that have come forward with legitimate sightings or legitimate images. Like, you can go on YouTube and look and put in the phrase "real Bigfoot sighting," and you'll get 25 of some jackass with a $5 costume jumping out like he's scaring people, and they overreact. And those just aggravate the crap out of me, because too many people treat the subject like a joke. And I understand to a certain amount of the population it probably always will be, but to those people who've had legitimate experiences, it's not a joke. It's a life-changing event. And even people that once thought it was a joke the first time they have an actual encounter are suddenly singing a different tune, because these encounters can leave a lasting mark on people. I mean, it can trigger PTSD in people. I mean, like my buddy that refused to go back in the woods. This is a dude that I knew. He was in his 40s and had deer hunted since he was like 6. Deer, turkey, squirrel, whatever you could hunt in the Missouri woods, he's hunted it, and he will not hunt. He sold his deer rifles. He won't go back in the woods.
Yeah, and I've talked to people all over the country and literally around the world. And like Will Jevning comes to mind from Creek Devil. I talked to Will, and he's got people that he talks to on a regular basis that have evidence that we will never see because of that very reason. They don't want to be called a hoaxer. They don't want to bring it forward. They know what they have. They know that it's real, and they'll share it with a few people here and there like Will that they trust, but we'll never see that evidence. And I think there is a ton of that out there that people have on trail cams and other places. And they're just like, there's no way I'm going to post this or I'm going to bring this forward, because I'll forever be known as that crazy guy that brought out the fake Bigfoot. video. So
Yeah.
it's sad. Like you said, all the hoaxers set us back so many years. Every single time they post some crazy video for clickbait, it pisses me off too. I'm right there with you, DA.
And I think a lot of people jump on evidence. I mean, I've seen a lot of evidence that is like, I don't even need Photoshop to make what you did. Like that's just terrible. But people are quick to jump on it because they want to believe and they want other people to believe. So like, that's got to be real. And some people thrive on that. And then I've seen other things that really make you question, like, DA, we saw that video that Thinker Thunker about the Bigfoot throwing the tree.
Yeah, the tree throwing video.
I
That
can't
one
get.
is mind blowing.
I can't. That's another one where I look at it and go, "Is this technically possible?" Yeah, but it would take a lot to fake this. Like,
Well, when they went
A
out to the
lot.
area and found the tree, it was like 10 inches in diameter and 30 feet long.
huge. Yeah, and it's clearly something's hurling that thing like a javelin. But then you've got the weird rubber suit guy peeking behind a tree. And my question is, whenever I look at pictures of video, is why were you taking a photo and why were you taking a video? That's always my first question, because if that's all you catch and that was the reason you had your photo taken, then
That's pretty
almost
suspect.
there's a 90% chance already that it's probably fake. Now, did you see something and then try to capture it later? Possibly. But if you're like in DA's case, for example, this is the best case example, you're out there doing something else and you have no clue what's going on behind you and you happen to catch something. It adds a little more credibility when you see these videos where they're using their camera for something else. I just hate the ones where you just get a quick little video of something walking through and there's no video before, no video after. And it's like, why was your camera rolling at that particular moment? I don't know. And that's another reason I wouldn't fake anything, because I think these hoaxers are freaking a-holes. I don't want to be the a-hole.
One of the best bits of video I've seen was from Les Stroud. It was one of the episodes that he filmed, and he was alone in the butt crack of nowhere. I don't remember which episode it was on, but he's walking and talking to the camera as he's walking through the woods, and like out of the woods behind him, you see something like looks to be about 6 feet tall, covered in black hair, dart between two trees and haul ass into the bushes. And he didn't even know it was there. It wasn't until later that they went back and analyzed the video. Like, holy crap, I don't know what the hell that was, but I didn't know it was there until I checked the video. And that, to me, that's one of the best ones that I've seen. And Les Stroud being out there in the middle of nowhere, catching stuff like that on camera, lends a huge credence to it, because he's not like doing a survival video in the park downtown and just staying in the woods so it looks natural. He's 60 miles from the nearest road in some cases, dropped off by a helicopter in the back country. When he says he's has had something happen, whether or not he catches on a camera, I give it a lot of credibility, because the chances of somebody, one, knowing where he's going ahead of time, and two, being able to get out there before him and set up just to hoax him on the off chance that he catches it, is the chances of that being a hoax is astronomically low, because he's out there by himself.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite stories he told when I had Les on the show. Was he captured this, they put up some apples on this tree, and he finished up the shoot. They sent the video off to the editing guys and whatnot, and they were getting ready to put the show together. And he got a call, and this guy was like, what do you want to do with this last couple of minutes of footage here when this head pops into the frame and those apples disappear? Like, what do you want to do about that? And he's like, what are you talking about?
What?
And he goes and looks at it, and literally in the video, you can see what looks like this conical shaped head that pops up, and then the apples disappear out of the frame, and you don't see how they do it. And that was one of the most compelling stories he told me. And I was like, how do you explain that? Like you said, it's the chances of that being hoaxed are slim and none, because he has nothing to gain from it, and he didn't even know it was there. The guy had to call him. It could have ended up on the floor of the editing room, and luckily this guy made the call, and he was able to make the catch and say, "Oh, wow, that's pretty cool footage."
And I think in reality, I think your best chance of capturing something like that on video is like in that case when he wasn't intending to do it. I think these things are able to identify not just our body language and posture, but to be able to study our intent. If you're out there specifically looking for them, unless you are one in a million, you round a corner and there it is, you're probably never going to find it because they're born to that environment. They are the masters of their environment. It'd be like saying somebody's going to sneak up on you in your house. Uh, if somebody's breaking into your house, you're going to hear them, and they're probably going to get a bad case of lead poisoning. But if you're out in the woods specifically looking for these things, they're going to know where you're at long before you get even close. It's those rare times when you're out there, like, hey, the leaves are turning. I want to get some leaf videos of these golden leaves, and something goes do, 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 across the screen in the background. Because I think they're able to identify when we are actively looking for them.
And then you also have to have, not only be out there looking for them, have the wherewithal to remember to actually take a photo or video of one and not be crapping your pants the second you. I don't care how many times you've seen these things. I'm sure it still takes people by surprise each time they see them, assuming they see them more than once. You've got to, I can't remember to take a photo of something else less surprising than that. Sometimes it's like, oh man, probably should have taken a photo of that, and then you introduce something that like, a Bigfoot or a Dogman, not going to think to pull your camera out. It's got to be those accident moments.
Yeah. I mean, if you step around a corner on a trail, I know this would be the case with me. If I stepped around the corner of a trail and there was a 7-foot Dogman standing in the middle of the trail, well, first I'm going to be hoping I'm wearing brown pants, and then I'm probably going to put my hand on my pistol and back the hell away. I'm not going to be thinking like, hey, it's time let's get a selfie. It's going to be, let's get the hell out of here before this thing eats one of us.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I talk to so many people that say that, I had this encounter, I had this experience, and my cell phone was laying in my lap, and I just didn't think to pick it up. And it's 2, 3, 5 seconds, like you said, because that's always the go-to for the skeptics and the cynics that say, well, why aren't they, why didn't they get a picture? Well, because if you're in the throes of that and you're in the middle of that, that's the last thing on your mind, right? You're not thinking about taking a picture. You're thinking about fight or flight. I'm going to fight. I'm firing. I'm putting some rounds down range, or I'm getting the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm. Well, look how many people actually get good photos of deer. I mean, you have, how many times have you had a deer run across you on a back road? And are you going to get a picture of that? Not unless you got a dash cam running, because one, the encounter lasts for just a couple of seconds, and two, by the time you go, oh, look at the deer, it's gone. You're not going to get, unless you've got your cell phone already up and recording, you're not going to get anything. Because most sightings, even with wild animals or mountain lions or bears, you don't get a good long look at them because by and large, they don't want anything to do with humans. And if that carries across to even the bigger predators of the animal kingdom, the chances of you getting a picture with anything short of a telephoto lens from 100 yards away is pretty slim.
Yeah, we ran into a mom, a sow and 2 cubs, black bear on our property here a couple of years ago hiking. We were coming up this ravine at the back of our property, and like 35 feet away, we see this big black face sticking out of the front of a den, and it's a mom, a sow and her 2 cubs, and she sticks her head out, she pokes her butt out. The one cub goes out one way, the other one goes this way, and I had a cell phone in my back pocket. I wasn't reaching for my cell phone. I was pulling my 40 caliber pistol that would have probably just pissed her off out of the bag. And I'm thinking, if she comes after me, I've had a bad day. And I was scared to death that this girl was going to come after me. The last thing on my mind, oh, a pretty bear. No, I was thinking self-preservation. Yeah. And she wasn't that big. I mean, she was a big girl, but I'm thinking a mother bear and some cubs, I am in trouble. So I can only imagine if you run into a 9-foot, 1,000-pound ape in the woods, the last thing you're going to think is get your cell phone out. It's going to be a whole different ball of wax for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, Yeah, and even if even if you were so inclined to do so, the odds of you having more than a couple of seconds of actual visual sighting are very, very slim. Most Bigfoot encounters and also Dogman encounters take place very quickly. Um, by the time you like reach for the cell phone and pull it up, it's probably gone. Um, and when we fall back to what we were talking about earlier about mind speak or telepathy or whatever you want to call it, I've read a couple of encounters where hunters had one in their sights and had the distinct feeling that if they pulled that trigger, they were dead. I don't know if that's mind speak. I don't know if that's the primitive part of your brain kicking in, what we call the lizard brain, good old ass saving fear, whatever you want to call it.
Well,
But
Brian just said the same thing. If he fired his gun, he's probably just going to piss her off. It was a very similar. You kind of know if you use firearms enough, and DA, you can attest to this. You've been hunting. Use firearms enough. You can look at a creature and probably get a good judge of how well is this caliber going to do against what I've got down the end of this barrel.
I wouldn't
Probably
use
not
a
so
standard
good.
AR against a moose. It's not going to drop it.
It's going to piss it off.
When you look at something with that kind of muscle mass and density, you wouldn't hunt a grizzly bear with a standard AR, a 5.56. Yeah, if you did, your only way you're coming out of that woods is a brown bear bowel movement.
Yeah, I was not going to point that 40 cal pistol I had. That it was just not going to happen. I mean, it would have probably maybe scared her enough to give me a few seconds to get away, but I definitely wouldn't have put her down with it. And
Yeah.
that was the last thing I wanted to do, obviously. And she just moseyed on like I wasn't even there, thank God. But yeah, I had that moment when I got to the top of the ridge. I thought, man, your heart's pounding and your adrenaline's pumping, and I'm like, I know what that is. I was in no danger because she clearly went the other way. And then I started thinking, man, these people that see Sasquatch and some of them have face-to-face encounters. I cannot imagine what that would be like. Seeing a couple of black bear on the property, and then equating that to a Bigfoot sighting. And now I kind of understand how people feel that have actually had those physical and sightings with Bigfoot or Dogman for that matter.
I was hiking mountain trails with some friends one time, and we rounded a corner on the trail, and there was a grizzly bear in the trail. It was a big boar. He was a big boy. He wasn't more than 15 yards away, and I said, all right, everybody freeze. Nobody panic. Don't take off running. And all I heard behind me was and I looked around and I was alone. And the bear kind of looked at me and I looked at it and I started backing away and it just turned and went on its way. But had it been, close to hibernation time or he had just come out of hibernation, a fat guy would have definitely been on the menu. And any big predator is going to be that way. Heck, even large ungulates. I mean, you start talking about caribou, moose, elk. These are animals that can and will do you an injury. I mean, moose kill more people a year than people realize. If you live up in the mountains, like near Alaska, heck, it wasn't that long ago. There was a guy stomped to death by a moose just outside of a bank in Alaska, in town. Moose are dangerous animals, and it'd be one of those cases where if I wasn't sure of the shot or I wasn't sure I could take it down, I'm not going to take the shot. I'm just going to try to get the hell away from it. I mean, I've read that most game animals on the face of North America have been brought down with a 22. I've read that in a number of cases, but it doesn't say how many shots it took and how lucky you had to be and how exactly precise you had to hit the right spot. You get some 12-year-old kid with a Ruger 1022, he's not got a chance against one of these big predators. Best thing he can do is just pack tail and head out. But the big predators are dangerous. And that's why I tell people, if you're going to go hiking in the woods, whether you're Bigfoot hunting or anything along those lines, hiking, camping, fishing, hunting, if you're going to be in the woods away from quick response from 911, you better be able to protect yourself, and you need a med kit.
Where can they get
Good
med
advice.
kits at, DA?
That funny you should mention that. I recommend Dark Angel Medical. I carried one of their kits my entire time in law enforcement. Dark Angel Medical's got the best kits in the business as far as I'm concerned. Whether you need a basic first aid kit or all the way up to full-blown trauma kits. And I carried a trauma kit on my belt, on my duty belt, because I figured it was probably going to be used to save my life. The awkward silence. Sorry about that.
No, I was catching up on comments, and I was posting the Dark Angel link.
I hadn't even been watching the comments. I'm pretty far behind, I'm sure.
A lot of it's been circle conversation amongst the viewers. But we're a little over an hour in. Did you plan on doing any giveaways?
Yeah, we can do one here in a minute. You want to fire up Nightbot? I've got brand new audio codes from the newly released sci-fi book. So I've got a bunch of audio codes for that. We can give away an audio code. Brian, one thing I wanted to ask you is have you had an actual face-to-face sighting with a cryptid?
No, I have not. Just the one experience that I had in Georgia when I was 12. I believe I was paced out of the woods by one of these things. And it was just the growls and the huffing and the vocalizations. And we've heard vocalizations here on our property in North Carolina that I certainly can't explain. And we've seen some structures and things like that on the property. I was recording a television show a couple of months back, and we were picking up some B-roll, and I was doing some pickups in the woods, and we ran across this area that I'd seen plenty of times, and I've talked about it on my show before. But it's like these bunch of fallen trees, and the more I looked, the cameraman was like, what is that over there? And I started going and checking out the area, and of course he starts filming me, and I'm like, I'm having my Finding Bigfoot moment. I'm going into the woods and seeing a tree structure, like 150, 200 yards from my house, where I literally, we hike and walk our dogs. And I've seen those trees before, but I'd really never checked it out before. And I got to looking, and it was so strange. Like, I don't know how these trees ended up in the configurations that they did, but no, that's some of the vocalizations and the tree stuff and things like that I've had experiences, but never a face-to-face encounter with what I would call a cryptid. No. I did see a UFO once when I was 16.
My wife had a UFO sighting when she was young. I've never really spotted what I would consider a UFO. I've seen some weird lights in the sky that I couldn't identify, but so I guess that technically is, by the strictest nature of the word, an unidentified flying object. But I'm kind of like you. I mean, my cryptid encounters in the woods were never visual. They were, it was one of those situations where what the hell else could it have been? I had something approach me in a deer stand from directly behind me on two legs, and it was big. And when I called out, because I thought it was a person, it kind of grunted at me and turned and walked away. And by the time I got out of the tree, it was a good sized walnut tree. By the time I got out of the tree, I couldn't find, there was nothing there. And then the other time I had a deer kill stolen, and tracked it until the blood disappeared. And that one kind of freaked me out. But, and I've heard a lot of hunters have had similar stories where they've had kills just go missing.
It's like here on the property, we've heard coyotes. We've heard the strange owl noises. We know fox make some really weird sounding noises. Mm-hmm. And this was, I guess it was late. Oh, God, my years are running together. It was last year, and maybe February, March. Just starting to get like 50-degree nights outside here in the mountains. And we were upstairs in the loft. I was doing some post work on the show and just kind of winding down, and we had the windows open, and we hear 50 yards from the house, like this Ohio howl type vocalization. I mean, I'm talking loud, like reverberating, feel it in your chest kind of loud from 50 yards away. And it had sort of a bark on the end of it. And when I've told people that story, they're like, well, it was a coyote. Well, if it was an 800-pound coyote, maybe. This was not, we've seen the coyotes. I've seen coyotes around our property, and they're like 35 pounds.
Mhm.
This thing was huge. And I'm just like, oh shit. What could that be? It was one of two things. It was either a Sasquatch on a property, or it was somebody dumb enough to enter the gates and the signs and the cameras and the motion sensors and somehow make it within 50 yards of my house and run the risk of, as you said, DA, some sad singing and flower bringing when you die of lead poisoning. That you just don't do that in this type of area that we live in here.
Mm-hmm.
So it narrows down, it's one of those two things. It was a crazy human being at, 10, 11 o'clock at night screaming like a Bigfoot, or it was a Bigfoot. I don't know.
That's the same thing here in Missouri. I mean, this is a big hunting state. If there's a season on, there's people in the woods. And even if people are just out hiking, Missouri is a constitutional carry state. Anybody that's not a felon can legally carry conceal in the state of Missouri. That's just the way the Missouri law is. And I guarantee you, everybody that goes hiking's got something on them. Missouri's a pretty rural state, and people go armed. So if somebody's out in the woods walking around in a Party City Bigfoot costume trying to walk across trails and frighten people, yeah, they're just liable to get a hollow point surprise. And that's why if people are legitimately hoaxing, it's
gonna have a bad day.
Yeah, it's a miracle none of them have been killed.
Like that one.
Well, there was a guy up in Idaho that was killed. He was in a ghillie suit trying to scare people, make them think he was Bigfoot crossing a highway, and he misjudged the distance, and a car took him out.
Well, I was going to say, remember those photos we saw of that were down on the lake? It was a supposed Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to clean them up, but they didn't look any better than what we saw posted. But we're thinking, first of all, that terrain is not fun to walk in, in a suit. But also, you're around a bunch of hillbillies down there in the Lake of the Ozarks.
A great way to get tied to the hood of a pickup truck.
You're gonna get shot if you do stuff like that. You're not gonna have a good day. They'll shoot first and identify later.
Yeah, if they identify at all.
Yeah. What'd you shoot? I don't know. Big old hairy sumbit.
Well, if somebody shoots it around here, somebody's going to try to figure out a way to pan fry it.
Oh, good night, Irene. If you guys want to take part in the giveaway later, just I only bring this up because only 16 people are chatting right now. There's 70 some odd people watching, so go ahead and jump in chat. Even if you just do the monkey roll on the keyboard, just say something. So
also, we've got
picks you up.
over 70 people watching and 42 likes. Hit that like and subscribe button, folks. Make sure you hit that little bell icon so you get alerted anytime we go live. And hit that, if you're interested, hit that join button down in the corner. That'll help you support the channel and help us continue to grow the channel. And share the videos with people that don't like this type of content. It really does help the channel grow. Now that I've done the public service announcement, we'll get back to the good part.
And if you join, you get cool little emojis like the wild hunt emoji. And
we've got just shot the first private video that's going up probably this week. Hopefully.
Yep.
I lost my train of thought completely.
Choo choo.
Yeah. Ding ding ding. Poof.
It happens to the best of us.
Unfortunately, it happens to me a lot. It's for every gray hair I collect, I seem to forget something. So, of all the stories you've collected, what do you think is the most terrifying?
I guess that's a little subjective for me because I guess all the stories between the Sasquatch show and the Paranormal Odyssey show, I think for me, the cryptids there's some scary stories, right? The Dogman comes to mind for me. But I have to be honest, the alien stuff and the alien abductions are probably some of the most scary stories that I've had on the show. As far as Bigfoot, I think there's Bobby here in North Carolina. deals with these things on his property. I mean, they're sort of like he backs up to the Uwharrie National Forest, and just the proximity and how often he deals with them. And he's got kids, and that's always one of those things that have bothered me, because I've heard some really creepy stories over the years from people that, these things looking into windows and they're looking in at kids. And I've always had that, that sort of hair on the back of your neck standing up, particularly for Bobby and his kids. I've always been concerned that one of these things might snatch one of his kids. And I know that sounds horrible, but and he thinks about that too, because, it's not a constant thing, but it's a very ever present thing that they just have learned to deal with. So that's probably the scariest cryptid thing that I've heard, is just these things being so close to his home and his kids, I guess, is what really concerns me.
Yeah, to me, anytime that a story involves a missing child are the ones that always bother me. And they did it when I was a cop. Anytime you dealt with a crime against a child, those were the hardest to deal with. But when you hear about people that have gone camping in areas and then had something threaten their family, those are the ones that really always get to me the most, because I know we used to go camping when my boys were little, and I remember one time down in Arkansas, down I can't remember the name of the park. We were in a campground down in Arkansas. We heard a mountain lion scream in the middle of the night, and it was close. I mean, not like reach out of the tent and pet it, but it was probably within 50 yards, and that was the point where we had a tent pitched and the camper on the back of the truck. And I'm like, all right, kids, get in the truck.
I think I kind of agree with you too, that the UFO in comparison almost is a little scarier to me, because I see Bigfoot and Dogman as physical beings. And even if it's paranormal, being a paranormal guy, I'm not very afraid of the paranormal, just because of my experiences and what I believe about it. We don't know jack about aliens. If they have the ability to fly here and with their technology, we don't know what they want us for. Obviously, we're a curiosity.
I'm not going to be able to stop them.
But yeah, and that's the scary part. You can't stop them. And it may be hard to stop Bigfoot and Dogman, but at least for the most part, unless you're out in the woods alone, probably not going to get messed with too much. What is that?
What is what?
Are we getting feedback, or is it just me?
I didn't hear anything. Unless you heard my keyboard.
Rejoin.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either.
Might have been just on Josh's end. One of the things that I find most interesting about when you start looking into the encounters and you've taken some accounts firsthand and read accounts online, is the similarity in details from differing places across the country. I mean, these are people that there's no way they could possibly know each other to get this story straight. It's they're telling describing the exact same creature, and they live 1,000 miles apart and have never met. To me, that's a huge amount of credibility to these stories. And then you start looking at Native American lore, and some of that dates back to before Europeans set foot on this continent. So I know there's got to be something out there. Whether or not we'll ever successfully identify it, I think it's been out there a long time. I think it's been out there longer than we've been here, and it's very, very good at avoiding us. So, proving the existence of this is going to be interesting, to say the least, especially when these things have adapted to know that humans is like stranger danger, stay the hell away from humans because they're bad news.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've learned about the show, or from doing the show, is it's the same thing you said. People are seeing and hearing the same things from literally around the world. I've talked to people in the UK, and I got some crap for that show. They're like, Bigfoot's not in the UK. You can't have a Bigfoot in England. And I'm like, well, no, you can. These people are having these experiences, right? And the similarities across the board, like you said, DA, are what drives me. You do this long enough and you hear enough stories. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times I have weeks, like I said, I hear some of these stories and I'm like, I get burned out and I'm thinking, is any of this real? You have those moments like, what am I doing here? Is this real, or is everybody just crazy and they're making this stuff up? But you talk to enough people and you start to get those patterns of the same sounds in Ohio and Alabama and Tennessee and North Carolina and in the UK that people are recording and hearing. You just can't discredit that. And it just adds that level of credibility, like you said, that these people aren't talking. Like nobody's calling up from Australia and saying, hey, I'm going to say that this Yowie sounded like this. So when you talk about it in Utah, make sure you say it sounded like this. So that just doesn't happen, right? And that's one of the things that keeps me going and drives me to sort of find the answers to that question.
That very similar to what I've always said about a lot of the ancient people who had these stories. It's kind of the same argument. They were separated by thousands of miles, if not continents, and all have very, very similar stories about these creatures. There are some variations, but like you said, we do have the ability to talk, though we're not, having this big conspiracy, but they didn't have this ability to talk. And yet they all had very similar experiences of these tall ape-like creatures, whether they were friendly or not. They all had enough similar characteristics to say that's kind of weird. There's a through line there.
Yeah. Well, this is something I didn't even know. Creepers, Cryptid, and Paranormal Corner said, and he's from Australia. He says, Aboriginals have always spoke of Yowies taking women and children from day one. How many Native American accounts say the same thing? This is a similar behavior on two separate continents.
John Doe says, if there's a global community being paid to fake all these things, I need to speak to their recruiting agent.
That's a good one, John.
Well, even in Scotland, up in the Cairngorm Mountains, they've got what they call the Gray Man, and there have been hikers that have gone missing. They've attributed to this thing, and it's described very much like a Sasquatch, but they seem most commonly to see it when the mist rises, which would be, if you're in a mountainous area with not a lot of plant life, that'd be the perfect time to stalk your prey.
Well, speaking of conspiracy theories, that kind of slowly ties back into your whole, connected mountain range, possible underground cave system, like, that whole thing.
Well, we know when before the continents drifted apart, the Appalachian mountain range was actually part of the same mountain range that runs through both Ireland and Scotland. So it makes you, fully understand why those mountains all have a similar feel. Why they might also have similar wildlife living in them. And when Irish and Scottish immigrants came to the United States, a lot of them settled in the Appalachian Mountains because it reminded them of home.
Wouldn't be too far of a stretch that if they were all living in those mountain ranges before the
shift,
that some continued to live in the northern part of that mountain range.
Well, and going back to the David Pilates missing 411 cases, not only are these clusters and these big disappearance groupings are in national parks, they're also close to major cave systems. If you look at the ones through the Appalachians, the Mammoth Cave systems run for hundreds of miles. If these things are using caves or even at least part-time subterranean dwellers, that could be a very great explanation why we can't find them, because we are severely limited by how far we can go back in the caves. Not just because of air quality, but because we're only able to pack supplies in for so much distance before they've got to establish a base camp and bring supplies in to resupply it to go farther. It is very, very difficult to go on a deep expedition into these caves when you can't simply have a helicopter drop in more supplies. Everything that they do, everything they explore, they've literally got to carry everything they need with them at all times. And that's why exploring these cave systems, we've only scratched the surface of them. John Doe mentions, have you heard of the Bering Strait land bridge? Yeah, that's another very good possibility on how some of these creatures might have gotten into North America, because we know a lot of the Native American tribes migrated across the land bridge. Gigantopithecus could have been a part of the creatures that crossed over the land bridge, and that's one of the prevailing theories that Sasquatch might be a descendant of Gigantopithecus. Of course, you've also got the possibility that it might be the descendant of Neanderthal. It also could account for why people describe different types of creatures at times. I mean, I've watched a number of videos, especially Matt Squatch Presents, who postulates there might be as many as 10 different types in the United States, which I find pretty interesting, especially when you start talking about the ones that are more predatory in nature, the meat eaters of the crowd, the Gugway, and the ones they refer to as the Wendigo. Not that I think that is the same as the Native American lore on the Wendigo with the deer horns and the gaunt features, but there is a type a type of Bigfoot they attribute to the Canadian wilds that lives primarily in frozen areas. That's just a big meat eater, and a lot of people refer to it as the Wendigo type. But when you start dealing with any big meat eater, it's pretty terrifying what they're capable of. And if you've got a 1,000-pound primate out there that preys on people, well, we know what a chimp that's half our size is capable of doing to a person. What's a primate that's 1,000 pounds capable of? How much stronger is it than a chimp? If a chimp is roughly 10 times the strength of a human on an average day, and it's half our body size and body weight, how many times stronger than us is a 1,000-pound creature?
Yeah, it's a scary thought, man.
Well, then you get the pictures that they found in the deep woods where trees have been snapped off or uprooted and driven back in the ground as a territorial marker. I don't know how much stock I put into tree structures, because some of those could have been made by people. But when you look at those trees that have been uprooted then jammed back in the ground, that would have taken heavy equipment to do. And a lot of these are in places where there are no roads. So it's not like somebody came out there with a front end loader and ripped one out of the ground, jammed it back in the ground. So there's no way they could have got it out there.
Agreed.
I was looking to see if we had any questions.
A lot of comments. Northwoods is heading out for the night. Just kind of people talking about the land bridge there for a little bit. Different creatures that have kind of gone back and forth. Yep. DA, you're talking too fast.
Sorry, I was looking at a couple of different things. I think that the commonality when people are describing similar creatures and similar behaviors from places as far away as Australia or Scotland or the Alma, the Almasty, or the Yaren up in the Urals of Russia or in the mountains of Tibet. When we start having similar behaviors and similar descriptions, it's too much to ignore. You can't just go, oh, well, that doesn't exist. Because not only are there hundreds and thousands of people that have come forward with sightings, think of how many didn't come forward because they didn't want to be mocked or ridiculed. And I'm not saying that every account of somebody that's come forward is 100% legit. We know people have hoaxed things in the past, but there are just too many to say they all are hoaxed. Way too many.
Yeah, I agree. I get that all the time. People, and that's one of my arguments that I went to in the past is, a couple of accounts you can discredit, right? But when you're getting 10, 20, 30, 100, 1,000, it's just, there's no discrediting all of those people. And if one of those accounts is real, then something is out there.
We're getting encounter stories from people from all walks of life. It's not just the old joke about it being toothless hillbillies in the Ozarks reporting UFOs. There are judges, doctors, lawyers, law enforcement, border patrol. There are all kinds of reports coming in on these different types of creatures. And you again, like you were saying, we just can't discount them all. Well, Brian, I know you've been up, since buku early this morning, and you're on East Coast time. I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you, and I would love to have you back sometime and delve into this at more detail. Appreciate you coming on, and appreciate you taking the time to hang out and chat with us. If you're needing to head to bed, we totally understand. Josh and I will probably do a giveaway or two and chat a little bit longer. But thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We'll have to get you on my show as well. So I've enjoyed it. Josh, you guys have a great night, man.
Very nice meeting you, Brian.
And I've been posting your links periodically throughout the night into the chat.
Awesome, man. You guys have a good night. Good night, everybody.
You too, man. You be safe.
Good night, Brian.
Keep up the good work, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, Blues, I like hats in general. I think DAs are the same vein. Few people mentioned this is actually my first one that I ever got, and I've gotten a few since then. I go through phases. For a while, I do ball caps, and then for a while it was a couple fedoras, but I realized I'm not a fedora guy. Just look like a sad basement neckbeard guy.
I've got a fedora. I just don't wear it very often. I love my Kolchak hat.
The Kolchak hat fits you well. And then I found out these kind of flat caps, I'd look okay in the flat cap. So I'm going to stick with these for a while. Susan says that she's been listening to Brian for a while. That's awesome. He seems like a good dude. I'm going to have to pull his podcast up and listen to him.
Yeah, I would like to do some of the things he's doing, and maybe to get some of our shows converted over to be on Spotify and things like that. I think that would be a great opportunity for us to expand the channel.
There is a plan, just not enough time. I keep saying it. I say it all the time. You've watched Harry Potter. Hermione's got that time turner where she can do 2 days in one. I need 48 hours in the time to do 24.
Mondox asked, says, has anyone ever heard of a ghost cat? Can't say that I have.
I mean, in paranormal, I've heard of various animals being ghosts, but I don't know if there's something specifically about a ghost cat.
John Doe had a good point. If humans have spirits, why wouldn't animals?
Good point. I've heard numerous occasions of dogs, cats. Those are the more common, sometimes beasts of burden like cows and horses. But most of the time it's usually like dogs or cats, just because they're common in households or where you would typically do ghost hunting. Yeah.
The paranormal end is more your end. I mean, I'm interested in the paranormal. I just don't know as much about it as I do cryptids. Cryptids is really something I've been fascinated with since I was a kid. And I'll always, in my heart of hearts, be a Bigfoot guy. But being the Region 2 guy for North American Dogman Project, I really developed an interest in that. I've known about them for a long time, but I've only been with North American Dogman Project for about a year now, and I really enjoy it. I mean, it's getting me involved in things I might not have been involved in before. I'm learning things that I didn't know before. And I really enjoyed the time I spent in LBL, and I'm planning on going back soon. That's gonna be a good time.
Heck yeah, I wish I could go.
Yeah, I think you'd have a good time, dude. But I want to get into some areas where I can film and can look for tracks, because I've seen lots of tracks that have been casted. I've never been able to cast one of my own. And it's something I really, really want to be able to do, whether it be at a Bigfoot or a Dogman cast. I would like to get one of each and actually have my own casted track, but it hasn't happened so far. I've seen tracks that weren't worth casting. If there's not enough definition to it, there's no point trying to cast it. Sorry about that.
No, you're
But
good.
I've never found that really good smoking gun, perfect print. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to cast that one. But I'm hoping I do. I mean, I really want to get one of those for my collection.
Heck yeah. Speaking of paranormal, just real quick, I've had some weird events. And Ellen said something. It was really weird about that screech. It was probably a technical glitch. And the voices I were hearing underneath of it was probably your guys' voices coming through. But it sounded a lot like an EVP. And it was while I was talking about paranormal.
I didn't hear anything on my end, and Brian didn't either.
People in chat said they heard it.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
that's wild. I didn't hear it at all.
It was really weird. Okay, so the other night I was sitting here doing some work, and we had a couple of plastic dressers in the living room. One of them fell over, and I got up and I was like, "What the hell was that?" And I wrote it off because they're kind of like cheap Walmart plastic little drawer things, and I was like, "Okay, it probably just toppled over." Then I came in, sat down. Something fell over here in the office. Then 10 minutes later, something fell over in the kitchen. And then, something else happened after that. What was it? I told you about it. And then something else where it was just a bunch of really weird things that wasn't supposed to be happening. And I was really freaked out. And then I had the stupid noise happen tonight. And we've had some increased activity here lately, and it's been weird. I need to really do a proper investigation.
I've walked through my kitchen, go into the back bathroom, and all the cabinets were shut, and come back, and there'd be 3 or 4 of them open.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's weird.
I just look at it like, well, that's odd. Considering how this house is built, it's old as hell. It very could have just been they opened because me walking across the floor vibrated them. But
Right.
you always look for the most logical explanation. But there's always that part of the back of your head where like, okay, now that's just freaking weird.
And I've told you before, I've had activity in this house since we moved in. I hear footsteps on carpet, kind of that scrubbing sound. I feel blankets being tugged while I'm sleeping in bed. I've had weird shadows on the wall, when we've had lights on various small things. Yeah, it's weird. You definitely have to do an investigation. And the paranormal podcast will be up at some point. Patty's been dealing with a lot of family stuff, and I'm just giving her some time. Plus, it's not like I have any extra time at the moment to do anything. So it'll happen eventually.
I want to take a second and make a quick announcement. I just want to let everybody know Naoma has decided to leave the podcast. She won't be with us on Wednesday nights anymore. She just has so many projects of her own that she's working on. She just doesn't have time to dedicate to the podcast at the moment. I'm not saying she won't be back at some point in the future, but Naoma is going to be taking a sabbatical from the Wednesday night cast. So we're sorry to see her go. I completely understand. I know exactly what she's dealing with, and I wish her nothing but the best. And I hope she's able to come back at some point in the not so distant future. And we all here want to let her know that we love her and hope she comes back some point soon, and wish her nothing but the best.
Absolutely.
Then he says, "Time to move out, Josh."
Yeah, they really don't bother me. And Tina said something to sage him and ask him to leave. They don't really bother me. I'd be great if Annette joined. I like when you two are on. She gives you a little hell, and I like it.
Oh yeah, she's not afraid to. Yeah, when on nights when we
I've been here all along.
yeah, she's been here all
Never,
night.
just always watching.
That's right.
Always watching, Wazowski. Always watching.
Got to keep you two in line.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's an all day job right there. So
Sorry, I don't like having my face on screen, so apologize to everybody, but
Well,
Just have to
so
look
we
at a black screen for me.
so we might be having her join us from time to time. Hopefully she'll jump in the middle and have a good time with it. But we are sorry, sad to see Naoma go, but we wish her nothing but the best, and she's welcome back anytime whenever she has projects caught up and is in a better place. So
she always brings a good perspective to the show and kind of her own. She brings Naoma to the show. That's the best way to put it.
Good perspective. Yep. And you never know what she's going to say next.
Hey, exactly.
Well,
that's not creepy at all.
Has Nightbot been running?
Nightbot's been running. So it's been a while since some people have chatted. So we're 19 eligible chatters out of nearly 90. So if you want to take part in you're doing an audiobook, right?
Yeah, it'd be the new audio book. It's the first book of my sci-fi series, Lost Legion, Perdition's Flames, narrated by Sal Passos from here in the chat.
Outstanding. Guys, go ahead and type in chat. Sal, if you don't mind. Well, he's currently not in anyway. I was going to say I was probably going to remove him just because it just winning recording he already has just feels probably not so fun. Hey, Robert Miller joined us.
Hey, there's the Sentinel. If you've got good Wi-Fi, you're welcome to jump in, sir.
But yeah, everybody jump in, chat. Go ahead and type in. We're going to go ahead and spin that up here in just a minute. And then shortly after that, we're going to do another giveaway with All Tower Media. I'm going to do it a little bit different than just the spam chat. We are going to do a giveaway to have your likeness put into the Watchtower 7 video game. I included that in the 2,000 subscriber goal, and I think we hit it right on about my cutoff day. So, hey, give or take a day, it's fine. Close enough. Why are you calling me on Facebook?
Ignore that. I hit the wrong button.
And this is proof why DA did not fake his video.
Yeah, because I suck at technology.
Now, you are a lot better than you give yourself credit for.
Well, I'm not great.
You're fine. I mean, running a podcast. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there that can do that.
No, well, I can talk I talk somebody's ear off. It's getting me to shut up. That's the trick.
She says, "No, I can't do a podcast." All right. Well, you want me to go ahead and spin it?
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
All right, here we go. The winner of the audio code.
By the way.
Yeah, I went ahead and marked him. Werewolf 5674.
Woohoo! Congrats, Werewolf.
With Tonga Poop Gug Chippin. I mean, that's one way to get in.
Whatever works, man. Werewolf, you can contact me on my email, or if you've got me on Facebook, you can send me a message on Facebook. However you want to do it, daroberts@daroberts.net, and I will get that code out to you. And that's for Lost Legion, Perdition's Flames. And Sal did a really fantastic job. There's a lot of different accents in that book, and he nailed them. His Duncan Kane with the slight Irish accent is just awesome. It's almost exactly how I pictured it in my head. Duncan's just one of those guys that you just don't mess with lightly, and Sal really captured his edge.
Adam said before we run this, I should go ahead and put up one of the other likenesses that we currently have ready to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So he said to let them know what they're in for. This is one of the ones we currently have that's been kind of been the skeletal model and animation testing. We grabbed that from
who's that
DA.
Some schmuck.
All right. So what we're going to do for the All Tower giveaway is we're going to do a keyword giveaway on this one.
Keyword?
Yeah, that's the one we first started doing, but I like and the reason I'm going to do the keyword giveaway is because I don't know how many people want to actually offer their likeness. I don't want to include a bunch of people if I'm going to be people are going to be turning it down left and right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Who wants to be a statistic in a video game?
yes, so we'll have you take photos front on and side, very simple stuff. And depending on where we use your character and if you have the ability, we'll even have you do some voice lines.
Rethink Inc. says, I have a question. Does DA have any older limited run cryptid books I can buy an autographed copy? I'm starting a collection to pass down to my little boy. Not at the moment. That's something that my wife and I discussed about whether or not we were going to just do those strictly at conventions. But let me talk to my wife. She's my business partner. She runs the business end of things. I'm just the moron that monkey rolls on the keyboard and spits out hopefully coherent sentences. So let me talk to her, and we'll.
You got your answer.
Yeah. The boss has spoken. We're probably only going to be doing those at conventions, but we are going to be doing a lot of those in the very near future. So we'll be watching the channel for those, and we will definitely be announcing those. Wanting to do a lot more of those. The Black Plague of the 21st century kept us away from them for the last few years. Hopefully things are getting straightened out to the point where we can start doing those again.
All right, so the keyword, if you want to take part in the video giveaway, is Watchtower. Just the word Watchtower. Don't include anything else, and it's all one word. So go ahead and you guys can type Watchtower in chat if you want to be a part of that particular giveaway, and then whoever wins, I'll get in contact with you.
I got to bring that back up again.
Heck yeah.
They did a really good job.
I got another one in here.
I
should show you.
I appreciate the fact that you guys made me thinner.
Let's see if I can find the one.
I'm a little chunky.
Where you're all floppy. No, I don't have that one. That one was somewhere else. It was like 7 of you in different, like sitting on the ground. It was a bunch of different ones. Here, I'll throw another one up there for you. This one's kind of just you staring off into the night, wondering if it's staring back at you.
That's funny that you guys took that from an actual photo of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that polo shirt, and that gray tweed hat is right here.
Very nice. Yeah, Adam is quick, and he does a damn good job and does not give himself enough credit.
Adam's pretty awesome.
All right, so if you guys want to take part in the giveaway where we use your likeness in the video game, put Watchtower in chat. I'm going to go ahead and roll that here in just a moment or two.
Transport says, type that 3 times in religious types will show up at your door.
Oh, no.
Now, this is funny, too. Type Watchtower 3 times with the light off and video game DA Roberts will appear behind you.
You guys can't say things like this because you guys say stuff like this and Adam immediately goes to his keyboard and starts making stuff. There's been too many times where I have joked or DA has joked or Matt has joked about something and we get an image like 10 minutes later like this.
I need to get an image of me with this terrified look on my face, like the Dogman with his hands on my shoulder leaning around.
Oh man. All right. I gotta make sure Adam didn't type Watchtower. Make sure he's not creeping in chat. That's something he would do.
Thanks a lot, Werewolf.
Oh man.
Thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate that.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and roll it. This is for the All Tower Media giveaway. John Doe. Adam says, I didn't think about it. Or I didn't, but I thought about it. John Doe has won the giveaway.
That is awesome.
John Doe, if you want to shoot me a message, I know you're in the Discord. That's probably be the quickest and easiest way. Shoot me a private message, and or I'll just get with you. I mean, I can message you just as easily. John Doe says, "Oh no, yeah, John Doe, we got to give you some sort of identity now."
Jonathan Q. Doe.
Yep. I'll get with you over Discord, and we'll get what we need to get that taken care of.
Werewolf, check your email. I just replied to your email and sent that to you.
You did not enter. It has you in here. If you abdicate, I will roll it again then, because it picked you up somehow. Now, if you said,
does he want his face on?
it's
the character's moving around like a normal person, but the face is all blurred out.
John Doe, yeah, apparently it also picks up if it's anywhere in the words that you use. So I will go ahead and roll it again. Rethink Inc.
Whoa, cool.
All right. Rethink, let me know if you're in the Discord. And if not, I'll shoot you my email. Now, this opportunity will still be available to everyone once the Kickstarter launches. There'll be an option to, at a certain tier, be able to get yourself into the game.
And just to remind everybody, for the members, for people that are members of the YouTube channel and members of the Patreon, we have our first exclusive video that's going to be posted in those, and probably within the next week. I just went down to went back down to Blunk Road and shot a longer video down there and got a really good look around the area, let people get a feeling for how remote that place is. And that's going to be up for members of the channel and for the patrons on the Patreon. So that one will be an exclusive content. And if you're a member or one of the patrons, watch for that coming up pretty soon. That's funny. Billy Mitchum says, as we say in the South, oh, God dang it, it rolled. It says, as we say in the South, you clean up real well, TA.
So that's all I got.
Well, we are coming up on the 2-hour mark, and I'm honestly kind of running out of steam. I wanted to let everybody know that Naoma was not going to be with us on the Wednesday edition shows anymore. I'm glad I got to get to do a giveaway for the new sci-fi book. I'm going to do some promotions on all of the pages talking about the release of the new sci-fi. I'd intended to do that last week and just hadn't gotten to it. It's been one of those days. Well, it's been one of those weeks. If anybody's familiar or friends on Facebook, they know that we had a loss in my family, and I'm still dealing with that, and probably will be for a while. Mm-hmm. Never mind.
No, you're good, man.
Still got a lot I'm kind of dealing with here.
It'll take some time.
Yeah. The let's see if this will finish loading. I have a commercial I thought I'd play. It's a promo video for my books. Naoma did this for me.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, here we go. Hope you guys like it.
From the mind of author D.A. Roberts. Cryptids. Lakeview Man. Apex Predator. Codename Wild Hunt. Zombies. The Ragnarok Rising Saga. Science fiction and fantasy. Lost Legion. Find them all at daroberts.net or amazon.com.
Well, that's the new commercial. I sent that over to Cameron Buckner today, and I think he's going to put that in some of his videos. Again, to bring this up, if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. And make sure you hit that little alarm bell so you're getting alerts whenever we go live. If you're so inclined, hit that join button. There are a couple levels of the membership that you can get. One level gets you new emojis that you can use in chat. Another will get you exclusive access to the videos that we're going to be shooting around the area. And in fact, my wife and I were just talking a little bit ago about some of the other places we want to go shoot videos at. So we're going to be shooting a bunch more of those, hopefully in the very near future. We kind of had to lay off for a bit with our vehicle situation, but that's all straightened out now, and we've got a really good one. So we're going to be able to travel to some places and start shooting more videos. And I'm going to post some of them. We'll go out on the regular YouTube channel, but a lot of them are going to be exclusive content for the Patreon and the members of the YouTube channel. So hopefully you guys will jump in on that and take a look, and hopefully you'll find something that appeals to you there. And Josh?
I got something. Oh, Adam has something for you.
What's that? What's it?
Told you can't say anything on here. He's listening. It takes him moments.
I need that on a t-shirt.
Oh, given time, this was just like minutes. Given time, he can make something that'll look good on a shirt.
Oh, that's hilarious. That needs to be my new Facebook photo.
Oh man,
I love that. That is awesome. Thanks, Adam. I needed a good chuckle.
Yeah, he sent that over, and I was like, oh my god, I can't wait for him to see this.
That's awesome, guys. I don't know if you guys have had an update recently. Panette says you look amused, not scared, though. Maybe I was amused. I don't know.
I mean, depends on where that other hand was, I guess.
Surprise! And there's claws on that finger too.
Ooh.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to see this video game finished. I mean, it's going to be so fun. I can't wait to play it. It's one of those things that I'm just kind of in awe that a project like this exists based on something I wrote, which is just, to me, just utterly amazing. Josh, Adam, Matt, you guys are all working on it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. It definitely put a smile on my face, and I can't wait to see it done. Well, folks, I think we're going to start wrapping it up. We are at just a little over the 2-hour mark. I want to thank Brian for coming on tonight. We had a great time. If you guys check out the Sasquatch Odyssey channel, I posted the link several times in the chat, and also it's in the description of the show. Again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Share the video with people you think might like the content. That'll certainly help the channel continue to grow. We are well over 2,000 now. When I checked, we were right around the 2020 mark. So I'm hoping to see that continue to grow like that, and as we invite more people to the channel and share these videos with a growing field of friends. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. We don't have fans, we have friends. And this show to me is more like just hanging out with good friends and good people and talking about things we enjoy, be that paranormal, cryptids, monsters, horror novels, books, movies, television. We've talked about all of it. We're going to kind of run the gamut. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys have taken this journey with us. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, writing and stories are journeys that we take together. And I thank you all for taking this journey with me. It has been my privilege to be on this journey with you guys. And I can't wait to see where it takes us. I think we've got plenty of road to go. Quick update on Apex Predator Dark Moon. It's over 10,000 words now, so it's growing rapidly. Not going to give anything away about that, but I think you guys are going to be pretty happy with it. And
got a Dogman in it.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
And then some. But some of the details, like the cover, is already being discussed. If you're a member of the Patreon community and also the member of the Discord, you can go to the Patreon section and see the proposed covers for the next couple of books. Get you guys' input on that. Hope you guys will check those out. Give us your feedback and see what you guys think. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for being on this crazy, wild journey with us, because it has been a hell of a great time. I'm thoroughly enjoy where this has gone, and I can't wait to see where tomorrow takes us. So hope you guys have an awesome night. We will see you guys on Wednesday. I don't have the topic at hand to announce yet. Watch for me to post the links for the show probably tomorrow. So appreciate you guys. I hope you guys will be with us on Wednesday night, and we'll talk to you guys then. Hope you guys have a great night, great, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good night, everybody.
Night all.
Thank you for joining us tonight on Dax Machina. If you ever have an encounter of your own that you wish to discuss, contact us at daroberts@daroberts.net. You can remain completely anonymous if you wish. Pull your covers up tight and keep a nightlight burning bright. Oh, and did you forget to lock your doors?